There you go. So are we right at 2? Yes, we are. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the 100th Zoom meeting of today, which has been very, very helpful to get all the information out at one time. So today what we're going to talk about is accessible content. So it's not so much that we're going to get into deep, dark details, but what we're going to do is cover the basics so that you know how to get started when you're creating your pages in Canvas. So the focus today will be faculty teaching, face-to-face classes mostly, who need to transition course content, resources, and assessments into their Canvas course shell for remote instruction, interactions, and communications. So we know that some of the instructors are scrambling a little to find out which pieces they're going to put online. And so we just want you to be ready for when you have to do that in Canvas. So what are our quick steps or our couple main accessible skills that we'd like to have when you're creating your content pages in Canvas? As you know, when you're creating a Word document, if you start off using styles and headings and boldings and lists, then it looks good, the page sequence is good, and screen readers can read that. So what we're going to do in Canvas is basically the same thing. We're going to look at page structure, how you start at the top with the headings, sequentially do that throughout the document, and also chunking, because I know a lot of us have some long pages that we want to make visually pleasing as well as readable in Canvas. Tables are a goodie. I know a lot of us that started out doing web design and Canvas stuff is like, oh, I want to use a table to lay out things and make it all pretty. Unfortunately, we're going to do that another way eventually down the road for you guys. But tables are a way to display data, and you just want to make sure you have heading rows and or columns, and make sure that the information is readable. Images, they're great for online, what am I trying to say? Online delivery of materials, and we just want to make sure that they have alt text. And then of course videos, that's a big one, because they'll say, you know, a video might be captioned and then it's not accurately captioned, so it kind of defeats the purpose. So those are the fast and furious things we're going to do today in Canvas. The next slide I'm going to go back to later, but it has yeah, I'll come back to that one, but it has some great links for you guys with wonderful resources. Okay, so I'm in my practice Canvas shell, and that's a good thing for you guys to do, is to get a development shell in Canvas just to get started out. And again, we're just going to go over the basics of how we're going to arrange the page. So as Sean mentioned in his getting ready or getting started in Canvas presentation, sometimes you're just taking text and copying it into the page. So when you do that, it's good not to have any formatting at all, so that you can start off fresh. Yes, there is a way from Word to be able to take that information, but it seems to me that it's always nice to start off fresh and clean. So
Cheryl, what some people don't know that we've all discovered the hard way is if you copy and paste directly from Word and put it in Canvas, it often brings over extraneous, unwanted code that you're not even aware of. So that's why Cheryl is saying strip it and make it plain text, because Word, you just, depending on the version and etc., you don't know what extra code it's bringing over that's going to mess up your Canvas page.
Right, and I was just looking shyly to my right to see my other screen. I use a text editor in on the Mac, or there is a shortcut that I learned this week on the Mac. It's Shift, Command, and Alt, and if you paste that way, it strips out everything. So yeah, clean is good. The other thing too is I've learned that you could actually paste in the HTML editor and it just comes out plain text too. And then you can go back. All right, so what are we going to start with? The first thing that we want to start with is a header. And if you click on the edit button in Canvas, as Sean did go over a little bit before, this rich text editor that's at the top of the text box, this area right here, that has all your tools. And as a heads up, Canvas Instructure has just released their newest updated rich content editor, and it's going to have a little bit different look and feel, but the items are all still, you know, available at the top. So in saying that, the word paragraph might lead you to the styles area, and that's exactly where it is. And when you click on the little caret arrow, you'll see that you've got a few different choices. Now, header 2 is the first one. And if you guys are using any types of heading styles, you're like, hey, what happened to title? Or isn't there a heading 1 or something? And so, lo and behold, the title of your page, which I'll show you up here, when you enter the title of the page, that becomes the title. So when the Canvas page is rendered in, you know, when you're viewing the page, then that's the biggest thing, is the title or the heading at the top, okay? So then the next sequential one or heading would be heading 2. So all you need to do to change how the page looks with the rich text editor is you just highlight the word that you want to change, go to the styles drop down and choose header 2. So that will be the first one. If it looks a little big, it's okay, because the way that it renders either in mobile or on a laptop or a desktop, it'll adjust, and it's not really as big as you think it is. So then next you look, okay, and by the way, I took this page from one of our @ONE courses for accessibility and stripped it way down so that we could rebuild it. And this was the section that had just content. So it's just giving you a little overview. So that is in paragraph. The other thing that I like to tell our users is that 12 point might seem small to some of us, but it really isn't. And instead of changing that to 14 or something bigger because you think it would be easier to see for the student, it's really good to leave it that way, just in case your college Canvas instance has some, you know, styling to it as well. So you don't want to get too mixed up. You want to stay pretty plain and easy to read. So that's paragraph form. The next says instruction. So with a show of fingers, what heading do you think, header do you think that might be? Let's see. That also is a heading 2, because it's referring to information that is as important as the overview. That's the way that I kind of like to describe it, is that when you're sectioning out, like even an outline in Word, or when you're trying to just rearrange information so that it makes most sense, overview and instructions are the same. Now you may say, let's go down the page and see, you know, is there another header 2, or can I continue with that one, or do I have to go to header 3? So what's interesting is that when you go to or when you look at the paragraphs and everything, you're like, yeah, nothing else really looks like it's supposed to be as important as those 2. So then we go down the list of sequential headers. This is our text right here, right? It's just regular paragraph text. And so is this. However, include the following to your content page. It has a colon, so that indicates to us, I think there's a list coming. So it's interesting also that when you use the numbering and the bullet tools here up in the rich text editor, stay simple, as I said, because we like to be a little fancy when we're doing indents and different types of bullets and everything. But I think if we stay pretty simple, it'll be a lot easier. So let's say we're going to bullet this first line that says use the rich text editor 2, and then we're going to use the bullet tool, which will start that as a bullet. Then it looks like add chunked, add appropriate, and the rest of these would be a subcategory of that numbered list, right? So if you click on the bulleted list again and then use your tab key while they're highlighted, it will move it and indent it so that it is under the head or the label of use rich text editor. Does that make sense? Then the next one for follow guides or follow all of your guidelines, if I hit the bullet text again or the bullet tool again, it's going to line that up with the first bullet of use rich text editor, right? And again, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat sometimes, and it depends on how you approach your document, but that's one of the easiest ways to do that. Same thing we're going to do with save and publish your page, because that's the next instruction under the content page. So I'm going to click the bullet list again, and there you have it. So that's your list. Oh, wait, this one here, it appears like this also is something that could either be just the paragraph, or you might want to put it in to include it. Here's a little tip as well. When it's a bullet, make it a short bullet, right? So that's why I think this one was just going to be one of our areas of text. Let's see, resources. I think we've just found another space where we can chunk this out so that it will stand out as a different section of the page. So I'm going to create, or I'm going to label that heading 2, as well as grading rubric. So now when you look at the page, and I'll save it just so it renders. When you look at the page now, it's like, okay, looks a little bit different. It's chunked up. It's got some headers in it, and it's got some bulleted lists. So those are the two, the bullet list and the headings are two of the first things that we'll do. Now, of course, y'all know about bullets and numbers, right? So if something is sequential, we like to use the numbering tool, which is as easy to use as the bullet tool. So for example, and this is just an example, if I were to highlight all this text and say, you know what, I think that should have been a numbered list, I can go up and change it in the toolbar. And then all I would have to do is highlight this text and shift tab it back out. Or you can use the indent tools that are up here in the rich text editor or content editor as well. I don't know why they didn't name it rich text editor, because I call it that anyway. But it's the rich content editor. So again, it's easy to do the listing. So let's see. The other thing that's really kind of cool, if you notice in the rich content editor, is what we call the little man.
I will just mention for the little man, the accessibility checker, he is fabulous for colors and tables.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really trust him yet for anything else. I use other tools to check headings and alt text, etc. But if you're putting a table in there, or if you're using color and you want to make sure the contrast is right, stick with him. He will steer you.
He will help you out.
He will steer you in the right direction.
Yes. And that's a very good example too of the color contrast, because if I were to change the color of the text, which I know color is really fun and cool, but for readability, usually we want to stick with things that are that will show up in for good contrast. And so if you do make a little error in the choice of your color for the for your text, the little man will point that out to you. And what's cool about this also is that you can fix it right here. So you can choose another color in the color palette that comes up. And when you choose it and apply, it will tell you, oh, not quite yet, not quite contrast enough. So then you get better at choosing the darker colors. And then
the one you changed worked. It just went to the next one that was too faint.
Too faint, yeah. So when you think about it, choosing your colors ahead of time is really time saving as well. So yes, when you choose a color and apply, then it's going to pop to the next one, and then you just fix them and apply. Just like that. And it will let you do one at a time. So in retrospect, when you go back to choosing a darker color, let's choose this one, and then choosing the accessibility checker, you'll see that that one's great. There are so many resources that we have on how to choose colors and how to lay it out, lay out your, lay out your page first, that you'll learn that it's easier than you think. Now, I just got distracted because I wanted to let you know about the tables, but also making the headings a different color really does sometimes give it a boost if you think that it's a little too boring. So as Helen always says, I always remember her saying this, if you stick with the top row, you're pretty much okay when it comes to color contrast.
I was just typing that into the chat.
Were you? Yeah. That's right. And I've learned to gather color codes and color combinations that really work well so that you don't have to spend a lot of time creating them over again. But you see, though, when you choose a color, other than black, it really gives the page a little bit of pop, and it makes us less nervous that it's a little too boring, because we don't want to have all text on this page, right? So those are just a couple of tips to make it look a little bit more interesting and to make sure that your information that you have on the page is being conveyed the way that you need it to be. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the edit button and we're going to add in Mr. Table. Mr. Table, like I said, is not a layout tool, but it is a very functional tool for expressing data. And the reason, or data, whichever you want to say. But again, the reason that we're even taking all of this time to do it, not only to make it readable for those who are able, but for accessibility, the accessibility side of it, it's also because we want to make sure that the screen readers are reading the information the way that it's intended to be. So let's, at the bottom of this page, we're going to add in a table. Again, the rich content editor, the first toolbar, or the first tool on the second line is the insert table tool. So if you're familiar with any of those types, even in Word, you can choose table, you can choose the amount of rows and columns. We'll pick 4 by 2, and then it will throw that right in your page. And in fact, let's see, we'll move that up. You also get a mini toolbar with tables. And if you hover your mouse over it, you'll see that the first one is about the properties itself, about padding and about borders. And then this is kind of a newish tool because, as Helen said, we've been using this for about 5 years. So when this came in, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so much easier than running up to the top of the rich text editor or rich content editor. So the first one, you can delete the table, you can insert rows and columns, you can delete rows and columns. So the first thing that we're going to want to insert, of course, is the heading column or the header column. And that's a little confusing because it's a table header or headings. So let's just say that for your course, you would put a little table together for assignments and maybe due dates or something like that. Due dates. Okay. And we'll say date started or start date. Better than showing anything. And then let's say completed. So that would be our header row. Just like in Word, we will highlight the whole row, and then we can center that using the tool in the rich text editor for centering. But then what we need to do is make sure that it's a header row. So in order to do that, you can go to the table properties, and then, oh, I just lost my train of thought. That was bad. Help, Helen.
Hit the little man. That's the easiest,
That's the easiest way. That's what I was going to say.
Don't even go into the code. Just hit the little man.
Hit the man. Gotcha.
Cast your colors.
Yeah.
And when she goes down to the table,
there you go. Okay.
He will walk you through how to set up your table without having to go into the code.
Exactly. When you're not used to the sequential, right? Okay, so why would we add a caption to the table? That's a general question that I love to ask everyone. Who knows?
I know.
Come on, Helen, tell me.
No, I'll let someone else answer. They can't unmute themselves because you've got it muted, but people could put it in the chat if they want.
I undid that. I unmute all.
You don't want to unmute everybody.
No. I know. Got it.
Anyhow, you want to give a caption because it's a data table. It's got all kinds of stuff in there, and a sighted person can immediately look at it and tell, oh, that's about heights of adolescents or whatever it is. A person who can't see the data has no idea what these cells are all about. So if you give them a caption, the first thing they're going to know is what's the topic of this table. And then when they get the individual cells read to them, they'll already have a schema for figuring out how things are related.
Very good explanation. And you can see some of the titles that we've used for or some of the words that we've used for captions. So you're actually going to give them, okay, so what is this? This might be the schedule. Then you can apply. And when it says no headers, it's actually highlighting that first row. And if you click on the little caret, you'll notice that you have 4 options, that it has no headers, which you don't want that one. Use the header row, column, or row and column. So in this case, it's the header row, and now that's great. If you have the column, you can choose that as well. When you're using, or when you're actually adding the content to Canvas pages and tables, we want to make sure that you're also limiting, centering a lot of text, right? Just make sure that you're most of it's left aligned. Same thing in the table. Sometimes I've seen tables where everything is very much in the center, and it's just a little bit harder to read. So that's on tables. And then let's see, I think we've got the lists, and now I think I'm going to introduce you to the world of images. Now, let's have a little bit of a conversation about images. In the beginning of accessibility alt text, we wanted to give every image a very detailed description, right? For what Helen said about the blind student who can't see it, the screen reader will read the description. What we've been finding out a lot is that sometimes the text is describing either what's in the image or in the graph, and of course graphs are a little bit more in detail. But I want you to think about when you're putting information on the page, if the image is complementing what you're saying, then maybe you can just use the decorative image option. And why I say that is because unless there's words in the image that is not repeated on the page, then you would add the text for the image. But we find that a lot of times, even for the sighted person, that describing that picture or that image is really important for the whole page. So when you're ready to insert your image, we're going to put it at the very top of the page. We're going to put a banner in. Now there's 2 ways that you can insert an image into your Canvas page. If you go over to the right-hand side into the menu bar at the top, click on Images tab, and this shows you your images in alphabetical order. So if you remember the name of it, it works out really well that you can grab it and then insert it that way. If you notice, there's also an option to upload a new image, which you then can take right from your desktop or your folder or wherever that image might be, and add it in. And there's my little window over my cancel. And then when you upload it, it will allow you to give it an alt text name as well. I prefer to use the embed image tool on the rich text content editor. So if you click that once, you'll notice that you have 3 different options. The first one is a URL. I don't usually recommend that at all, because that means that you found an image that had a URL like a web address, and then you popped it in there. The one challenge though is if that goes away, then it's removed from your course, and it's a little harder to find that. Flickr is now called Unsplash, but that is a way that you can find images in the Creative Commons. So something like computer, if you search for a key term, then all these images will come up. Great, you can use them right in your course, okay? But if it's a file that you've uploaded into your files folder, Then you would click on Canvas, course files, then you would go into the folder that you might have the image in. As you can see that this one has a bunch of folders so that we can keep things together. Then you find the image that you want. Now, two important things about how you're going to leave the alt text. We don't use any extensions, so not .png or .jpeg or GIF, that would be the third one. We don't use those because it doesn't make sense to the screen reader, and it could confuse the user. So one thing we would do is take off the PNG. But we also want to make it meaningful, right, to the user if the words are not in the page, as I just said. So this is a banner, right? So this happened, we're going to name it just banner, course banner. Oh, that was interesting. A lot of fingers going on. So CACC is the name of the course, and it's a banner. Okay. Now, this is also where it gives you the option for decorative image. So if you check that, then it would just give the tag for a decorative image. You can also change the aspect ratio of the file as well. So when we click update, let me stop him from hopping. When you update it, yeah, see, everybody's coming around now. I don't want to, go away. When you add the image, I'm sorry, when you click add image, it pops in, okay? Then, when I save the page, you won't see the alt text, but the screen reader will be able to read it, and that's about it. That's all you have to do is make sure that you have an alt text on it. Now, if the other thing that we could add in here, of course, is the whole words, creating accessible course content. But sometimes that's already in the title of the page, or it's in the context, like I said. So do you have any questions about adding an image, anyone?
I just want to give you a time check. There's 2 minutes left.
Okay.
And I think you have several things. I know you want to talk about captioning, and I'm not sure what else.
Right. Okay. So, well, that was it for the images. So we did those things. Yes. So now we're going to go into our videos. If you're creating your own videos, you will be able to have control over those captions. Okay. So if you're using Screencast-O-Matic or Camtasia or anything else to create the video, then you would be able to have more control. If you're using YouTube videos, and we're going to go to YouTube, our channel for OEI at 1 CBC, to give you an example here. Well, let's just explain the difference, and I'm going to take the volume down. But as you know, when you're on YouTube and you use the closed caption feature, if it's yours, you can edit it, add in punctuation and capitalization. And those are the two main things that are usually missing from auto-generated. So even though it's auto-generated, sometimes it could be good, but you just have to check it for those two things, right? Capitalization, punctuation, and to make sure that the words are correct, because sometimes they're not. So misspellings could lead to crazy things. You can see in this example that there's also an indication that there's music when it starts, and that some other little, tags will be put in if there's something on this, if there's no audio and there's something on the screen. So I wanted to show you that when you have good captions with the punctuation and capitalization, you're all set to go. There is a challenge when you're on YouTube though, right? So sometimes you're like, I want to search for things, but I'm not sure how I can get those videos that only have the caption. So if you were to search for, let's say Word, Microsoft, and you wanted to make sure that those videos were captioned, you can add in CC, and they will find the videos that are caption. Oh wait, I'm sorry, that's supposed to be a colon. Okay, and then when you go and why isn't that coming up? There it is. Okay, you see the little CC next to it? You know, oh, that's great. So I know that that one's got closed captioning. However, you still have to check to see if it is accurate. Now, this is what I love about some examples that just pop up. This one happens to be accurately captioned. Most of the time, they're auto-generated, so the instructors that we work with are a little bit, you know, frustrated that they're looking for videos and none of them are captioned properly. So make sure that when you're searching, that you search for those that have at least some sort of closed captioning. Now, the other thing is that if you find them that isn't closed captions, you can notify or I should say ask the author if it's possible to help with those captions. But most often, it's better that that you create your own video. And I wasn't sure if we could show that. Let's see. Yeah, well, we don't have time to actually show the captioning, but we have a lot of resources too on how to get your video captioned. There's 3C Media if you create your own videos that they will help you with captioning. But also, oh yeah, the one tool that I wanted to share with you guys with YouTube is there's one that's called DIY Caption, and I'll just bring it up really quickly so you can have it as your resource, and we have it with ours. It allows you to add this extension right into Chrome. Okay, so what that does is you open your video in YouTube, open this extension, which is up here in a little blue icon, and it'll let you fix those captions. And then you use Amara, which is another free resource for us to allow your students to see it within Canvas. So I know that sounds a little convoluted, but two things. Accurate captions are most important. That's how it's 100% accessible. And if you have those that aren't captions, we have some tools for you to make the video usable. So I hope that makes sense. There's other tools too. I just see, yes, there's Canvas Studio is really good. Some of the colleges we work with have TechSmith Relay, Camtasia, Snagit. And by the way, you can get Snagit and Video Review free from TechSmith until June. So that's another tool you could use. We just saw a presentation on 3C Media and PlayPosit. So there's a lot of tools out there. But for this beginning session on your accessibility needs, I'm going to go back to this PowerPoint and show you that here are three of the, I won't full screen, but here are three of the resources, which I think Helen can pop into the chat too, that will get you started for sure.
And one thing I'd add about video, another idea for usability, not strictly accessibility, make them short.
Oh,
there was data out there done over millions of views of videos, and anything over 6 minutes, the viewership dropped down progressively to 0 by 12 minutes. So even if you've got a 45-minute lecture that you want to put online, chunk it and divide it into whatever kind of topics or segments make sense, and turn it into 6 or 7 5-minute recordings instead of one big long one that students are simply not going to watch the whole thing, even though we know they should.
Right.
It'll also make it easier for you if you ever update your lectures or anything. You only have to grab that one little 5-minute chunk. You don't have to redo the entire thing.
And also, since we're focusing for this particular session on face-to-face classes, if you are teaching face-to-face and you are comfortable with recording, there are ways that you can actually record your discussion or lecture or whatever you want to call it, your content delivery, and then we can upload that also to Canvas in those various ways with 3C Media, PlayPosit, or any of those. And if you're really adventurous there's a way for 2 of those systems, or 3 of them, to actually add questions in for assessment. So we can help you build in with a lot of these tools, whatever you need to get the materials out to your students, also the assessments, quizzing, and all that kind of stuff in an accessible way. And just to wrap this up, accessibility used to be thought of as a separate thing, and we're hoping to change the minds of America. And what I just showed you today of like actually getting in there on your first time for a Canvas page, have the accessibility in mind, that it's not hard when you start off, but you'll hear a lot of, oh, wow, I have 20 PowerPoints and 20 PDFs that I need to remediate or fix. But if you start off with the, you know, the right, what should I say, structure and direction, right? Then you're way ahead of the game. And I know Sean mentioned something earlier about PowerPoint. And yes, there's a lot of ways that you can get your PowerPoints into Canvas, but first they should be accessible. Somebody asked in the previous session, how about if I'm going to use them to lecture like I would in my face-to-face class? That too is a possibility. Helen and I and Sean talk about it all the time, that right now I'm using PowerPoints to talk you through things. You can use it, you can do a video for that too, like very simple, but make sure that it makes sense. Like, this is how I would use it in the classroom, and this is what I would tell them about it. Then you've got also materials that you can use later on. And I was thinking about this earlier today. This is not just for the emergency. I mean, we're doing it fast because, you know, we need to. But when you think about any materials that you create for your on-site class will be reusable, which is a time saver not only, but it's very, very helpful for the students as well. What else we got?
I just put in the chat that we OEI instructional designers, Sean, Cheryl, and I, are setting up open office hours next week on several days. The details will be on the CVC OEI resource, emergency preparedness resource page. I just put it in the chat again, the link to it. There are a number of different resources out there, but we just wanted to let you know we'll do our best. And there are tens of thousands of instructors in our system, so you may be in office hours with a few other people at the same time, but we'll do our best to get you squared away.
For sure. And I think part of the challenge for us this week and today is like stripping it down, you know, like here's the bare bones, because we usually get into so many other conversations. And Alicia, you're really cute. What's with the pandas? She said, well, this panda we got for going to American River, that one is from Canvas. And the other one that holds a cell phone, an instructor gave it to me because they were so happy that
it's because Instructure used to have Panda be the avatar of Canvas. They're not using it so much, but we're trying to bring pandas back because we love the pandas. So we just have them in every screen view.
The ninja. They just happen to be hanging around.
So we know we went over. Hopefully you got some questions answered. And Cheryl, any last thoughts?
That we're here to help. Don't be afraid of making things accessible or materials accessible for your students, because it's probably easier than you thought it might be. And there's so many tools out there that can help you, and we'll just guide you to them.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Stacy, I can't stop the recording. You'll have to.
I can't.